Welcome to Know How Now series once again. This is the part 2 of 11 types of reporting a speech or thought. As I said in my previous video, it could be for the first time that you actually watch such a video on the art of reporting a speech or thought. This is Professor Sarath Kumar, who has been delivering lectures under this particular series, informing all the learning enthusiasts and even my students and others in relation with several of the topics which have not been taught in schools and colleges, in which in the manner in which they should actually be taught. Now, in this particular video, I am going to talk about speech acts. My previous video, that is part 1, was actually informing you about the various things which are forming the introductory part. I taught you that verbs were actually are the most important things which actually divide a particular utterance, whether it is overtly spoken or inwardly spoken, whether it is spoken, whether a particular utterance is spoken between two people or within oneself. We saw that element as well. After that, I told you the two different types of verbs. And most importantly, I said we have to be focused on performative verbs. That is what I covered in my previous video. Now, this is the time for us to learn about speech acts. The second part is actually talking about the speech acts. So, let us see what are the speech acts. But before we actually go into speech act, when a speech act is actually represented uh, in the form of writing or orally as well, we do it with the help of a particular structure or a format. For it, I take into account how when it is written, how it is done, because usually these things are covered in examinations, and most of these examinations are actually focused on the writing skill. So you are writing inside the examination hall, not exactly you are speaking. Therefore, I take into account that particular writing feature and show you how this can actually be done and what exactly is the basic format. Let us see. For example, we say, he said to her, okay. So on one side you have the speaker, this is the speaker. So you have a person here who has got something to say. So he said to her, and her is none other than the hearer or the listener. And of course, you can have here the listening person is, let us hope the listening person is actively engaged, and you have got the performative verb up, or you can take the main verb here being used to indicate what exactly happened in that context. So he said to her something. So this entire context is what is called the reporting verb. So we use the abbreviation RV traditionally as well. This is the same abbreviation that is actually used. So you have got what is called a reporting verb. The reporting verb contains a verb. Apart from the verb, you also have a speaker and also a listener, and this entire thing is very clearly known to us. It is deliberately given sometimes. Please wait. Sometimes it is not present as well, as we see in some other examples. So this is the first part of a particular what is called speech sentence. Now we will go into the second part. In the second part, we find again, for example, he said to her, where do you live? Look at this statement. Many people say that this is a statement, but this is not a statement. It is a sentence, and more importantly, it is a question. So, where do you live is a question, and this entire thing was spoken by the speaker, okay? And this entire thing was spoken by the speaker, and then it is the listener who actually listened to it. Hence, this is called the reported speech. The reported speech. Hence, it is called the reported speech. So even in traditional grammars as well, you will find the same expression, reported speech, and the abbreviated version for it is RS. This is basic and this is very fundamental uh, before we actually go into the types and other classifications. This is very fundamental. So the reporting verb indicates the details with reference to the speaker, with reference to the listener, and also the main how that particular statement has been spoken. So all these things you will find actually in the reporting verb. Sometimes we say he asked her where she lived. If you say that way, then ask becomes what is called the performative verb, and so it indicates even the tonal qualities as well. When you the previous example in the previous video indicates the same thing. She ordered him to get out. When we say she ordered him to get out, that ordered is a verb which actually indicates even the tonal quality in which the reported speech has been spoken. So that is what is the basic structure or format of a particular um, speech sentence. This entire thing is a speech sentence. You have two divisions here. One is the reporting verb. Hereafter I'll be using the abbreviation RV. Please remember that. And then you have the reported speech. So we must be changing this particular speech from one type to another. Why we should change, what happens when we change, that we shall cover later. So let me take you to some other examples where exactly you can find the difference in which they are actually spoken. Now look at these examples which are clearly indicated. Please don't focus on this. You are going to learn about these things very quickly, but just focus only on the examples and their structure. Now, in the previous, slide, I told you that there are two fundamental parts. One is what is called the part which contains the details pertaining to the speaker, listener, and how that particular information has been presented. So that is the first part, and then you have the second part. Now look at the very first sentence. I will surpass you soon. When you say I will surpass you soon, you don't have complete information pertaining to who had spoken to whom. I is there, of course, the first person pronoun subject I is there, and then you is also there. There is a second person. Now the presence of the first person and the presence of the second person clearly indicate that there are two people involved. One is a speaker and the other is a listener. The speaker is indicated by I and the listener is indicated by you. Very clear it is. But who are they? Are they man and woman, he or she, or some names like John and Mary? Who exactly are Mary and John? Who exactly that particular speaker? We don't know whether the first person is a champion or upcoming champion or a novice. We don't know any kind of information. It sometimes in short stories, in novels, in dialogues especially, all of a sudden these things come, and then it is the context which actually decides that. There is no overt indication of the reporting verb or RV. RV is not necessary because the context is very clearly indicating that, and then it is deliberately removed. The reporting verb part is entirely removed, and then you have only this part coming up. So this is only the reported speech. As I said to you before, it is the reported speech. You don't have the two things over there. So this is one type. And then you have the second type where you have the reporting verb and also the reported speech. You see, you have the two parts very clearly. I have shown you in the previous slide as well, this kind of example, because this is what we have been teaching in classrooms under the title direct speech. This is the direct speech, but before direct speech also there is something. I don't know why many of us actually, us means our teachers, in fact, many of our teachers or our teaching fraternity, they ignore this. The children are not at all taught this particular part. It's not a complaint, but let us simply do this particular thing. This is the main agenda of this particular video. So at least via this video, let me inform the teachers that they have to do all these things inside the classrooms and then empower the students to do things in a better way. I mean, especially when they are going for creative writing and all, they must be able to do these things very correctly. Unless they know, they cannot do. Okay, let me focus on this. So the second type, you can see the presence of a reporting verb, the real speaker, the real listener, and at the same time you have the spoken content as well. Now let us go to the third sentence, wherein you have one single thing, that is, he would definitely scale her soon. Please understand that will indicates that kind of definiteness. In face-to-face conversations or in live conversations, that the internal quality of that particular verb will indicates definiteness. But when you bring it to the indirect speech, when the context is changed and then the environment is changed, and then the speakers remain, maybe the invisible speakers would be coming over there, and in this case, who is this he and who is that her, that is also not clear. So we have only the presence of the reported speech. We don't have the presence of the reporting verb, because we don't know. Of course, even this can be manipulated. I can say she would definitely scale her or him. An ambiguous pronoun, I can take her, and also I can take him for that matter to cause that gender difference. I can also, she would definitely scale her soon. There are some ambiguous pronouns as well. The mother was angry and bet her daughter. She started crying. Okay, the mother was angry and bet her daughter. Full stop. She started crying. Who is this she? Mother or daughter? So this is some ambiguity. So it can be either mother, for why have I beaten my daughter? Like that, the mother might have cried. And my mother has beaten, and obviously the daughter must be crying. So who exactly is really crying? We cannot say. So that kind of ambiguity can be created if I simply add her, or I can take he. He would definitely scale him soon. Even that kind of ambiguity can be created. So you have another type here wherein there can be a chance for the creation of what is called ambiguity, but at the same time, a second line of ambiguity is who exactly is this he or the she, what is called him or her, that is, who is the listener and who is the speaker. We are not clear. That is the third. And then of course we have the fourth, which we have been teaching in classrooms everywhere, and that is another than. He informed that her that he would scale her soon. So this is another type wherein you can have the presence of the reporting verb and also the presence of the reported speech. And of course, you may ask me, Mr. Sarath, why exactly you are just going on and giving the examples without naming? Very soon you are going to learn the names as well. I'm just showing the different varieties that they are possible here. Now look at this fifth example. In this example, you have only the reported speech. He vowed to defeat her. Now, when you say he vowed to defeat her, it exactly mirrors the intention of that particular speaker. I will surpass you soon is nothing but he vowing. From where this vowing come? Actually, it comes from the presence of that internal quality of will. Will is definiteness, and that definite determination on the part of that particular speaker is actually indicated by the word vowed. He vowed to defeat her is exact representation of what exactly the previous statements actually make. So this is the summary content of what exactly the original statement has spoken. Even in this case, of course, we know that it is he who actually is the speaker, and then her who is the listener. This is the speaker and this is the listener. We can understand these two, but at the same time, it's a simple statement indicating what exactly happened between them, and then that is a summarized way in which the total meaning is represented. So he vowed to defeat her. In this particular component, you have a speaker and you have a listener, and this is the reported speech. So that is how you can have the present. This is another example of a reported speech. And then you see the last one. He spoke to her. Now, when you say he spoke to her, it is neither reported speech nor it is reporting verb. You may think that this is the sentence doesn't relate to a speech act at all. It doesn't have any connotation to a speech act. Because what exactly has been spoken, we don't know. But please remember this particular thing, spoken. What exactly has been spoken is not known. Right? So something has been spoken, right? It means it is a speech act. And how do we know that something has been spoken? What is that something we may not know, but something has been spoken is known by this particular verb, which is the performative verb. The performative verb spoke clearly indicates that something must have been spoken by her. Now you see, you have got 6 different ways in which speech can be represented, speech can be presented. So let us now give the names to these, or let us now try to what is called see which is what. So let us see one after the other which sentence belongs to which group. We will see now. Let us start from what is called known to the unknown. We will start with the known. The known thing is the second one, and we call it none other than, we include it in direct, in the direct speech. We know this. Then we go to the fourth one, and the fourth one is none other than the known one, that is the indirect speech. Then what about the first one? The first one is called the free direct speech. When we say free direct speech, neither the speaker nor the listener has any kind of control over what has been spoken, because they are not overtly present there. They are not very clearly present there. They are completely obliterated there. So that kind of control they do not have. So that is what is called the free direct speech, and its version is none other than the third one, that is free indirect speech. This is called free indirect speech. She would definitely scale, he would definitely scale him soon, or she would definitely scale him soon, or he would definitely scale him soon, or finally she would definitely scale her soon. Whatever may be the combinations that we see, definitely it is none other than indirect speech. That's what we have, I mean, that's what we were able to understand. So that is free indirect speech. After that, you have he vowed to defeat her. As I said, this is a summarized version of what exactly the direct speech, not the free direct speech, but the direct speech actually indicates us. So that is none other than narrative reporting of speech acts, NRSA, narrative reporting of speech acts. Of course, I'm going to write on another slide what exactly they are. And finally, you have the presence of a particular speech act, what exactly is spoken and how, what kind of emotive element you have, all these things are absent. Just that there was a particular, it's not playing cricket, or it's not cooking food, or it is not delivering a lecture, or it is not moving from one place to another, or it is not any other activity, but the only activity that existed at that particular point of time in that particular context is none other than a speech act. To indicate that particular presence of a speech act, we use this particular expression. So this is also a speech act, and that is called RSA. It is not reporting. Please understand, it is not reporting. R doesn't stand for reporting. I say again, R doesn't stand for reporting. R stands for what is called representation of a speech act. It is a representation of a speech act, not a reporting. Because if you report, there must be a content. What exactly is the content? What exactly the speaker has spoken? What exactly the listener has listened to or heard? Sometimes the speaker speaks in one language, the listener listens in another language. Or the listener's language is entirely different from that of the speaker. So what exactly has been understood? That is also a big game. So that is not the ambit of this particular topic. We will see that at a later date, but not now. So these are the 6 ways in which speech acts are actually performed. So let us give them the names in some other slide, and that slide is this. So let us start with the very first one, and the first one is none other than the free direct thought. The first one is none other than the free direct thought. So we'll start with free direct thought. Free direct thought. Free direct thought. It's not free direct thought, it is free direct speech. When we go into thought, we will talk about that as well. The second one is, as I said there, direct thought, direct speech. I don't know why this thought is coming into my mind. The third one is free indirect speech. And the fourth one is indirect speech. And the fifth one, narrative reporting. Narrative reporting of speech act. And then the sixth one, representation. Please look at the word. R stands for representation. Here R stands for reporting. Representation of speech thought, speech act, where you have only the present. So representation of speech thought, speech act is here. And then let me take another color. So these two are similar. I mean, we know them, and these two are one group, we can say, and they are miles apart. Please don't think they are separate. They are not one and the same. They don't have any kind of connection, as we indicated. They are not equal to. So they are not equal to each other. Please understand that they are miles apart. Narrative reporting of speech act is entirely different from representation of speech act. So they are entirely different. We have been teaching students direct speech and indirect speech, and then free indirect speech and free direct speech without the existence of that particular reporting verb. Okay, they exist without the reporting verb. Whereas these two, direct speech and indirect speech, why do they have the reporting verb? Because the narrator's main intention is to indicate who spoke to whom. So these are the narrative techniques. We need to remember that. You may ask me whether it is really suitable to the intermediate students. When you are asking a student to what is called change the report of a particular sentence, the student must be able to understand these things, because the mechanism in which you actually cause the transformation is entirely different from group to group, so, or pair to pair. Let me put it that way. So you have first pair here, that is other than the free direct speech and free indirect speech. You follow one mechanism, and then direct speech, the known one, the second pair, where you find the direct speech getting converted into indirect speech. We follow a different mechanism. And finally, you have narrative reporting of speech act. We take free direct or direct, and then we change it into narrative reporting. That's another mechanism. And finally, representation of speech act, which is very minimal. It is very minimal. We just indicate that a speech act took place. So there are different ways in which we are actually doing this. So that also is very important. So these are the 6 different speech acts which we can find. Now let us simply go to the next. I mean, these are the examples, and we already understood that. Anyway, we will go to the other. So what exactly do they indicate? How do they indicate, please? So we will see how they actually indicate, or what they actually indicate. So the previous slide clearly indicated, I mean, when I was doing these examples, I clearly indicated to you. So let us go to examples and then see how that can actually happen. Examples. Look at the very first thing. It is something like, I will surpass you. When you say I will surpass you soon, now what exactly is being indicated there? That is always we know that it is free direct speech, and free direct speech definitely doesn't have the speaker's information and the listener's information. But when it comes to that particular point, if you take into account the content that is being represented by these different types, I have classified them into, or rather the classification has already been done, and I am just indicating to you in my own way. And these are 6 important types. You please see how speech acts actually can be. These are all language functions. Please remember, my dear learning enthusiasts, please remember, all these are language functions that I have indicated in those. But if you say, what exactly do they contain, sir? You please explain that. Now you can see here. The first one is the representative. When we are speaking to someone, or when it is a particular conversation where we can see how that narration took place, we sometimes we represent words what exactly the speaker really wishes to say. We represent as a story writer, we just represent that. That is what is called the representative speech act. Words state what the speaker believes. The speaker believes that it is very hot, and so you say, he said to her, inverted commas begin, it is very hot outside, finished. So what the speaker actually believes, if you say, that is nothing but representative act. Then you have you say, you direct someone, you instruct someone, you the listener gets instructed by the speaker. So some kind of guidance is given, some kind of directive is given. So that kind of a conversation you can have. In such a case, it is called directive. For example, you say go straight and take right turn to reach the post office. So you are directing that person to do that. So in such a case, that kind of a thing is none other than a directive function of that speech act. Then you have words commit the speaker to a future action, that is commissive. Next week I shall visit your place. When I say next week I shall visit your place, this particular statement is commissive because a future action, that is next week it is going to happen, and it is the speaker who actually gets committed to it. So it forces that particular speaker to perform another action in future. So that is what is commissive function. Then you have the expressive function. Expressive function denotes to the emotional content. So words indicate the speaker's response to a particular situation. So someone's birthday party, and then you go there and you say happy birthday, something like that you say. Of course that is redundant, we'll talk about it at a later time. You just go and make some kind of wishing, so that comes under expressive function. So you are going to be very expressive, you are going to indicate your emotion. Or you are in the hospital and then the nurse comes and injects, and then you feel painful, and then you cry and then say, wow, I have pain in my hand, something like that you say. That is the emotive content. Or you make an apology, you did something and you say I'm sorry. This I am sorry is also a particular expression of what is expected from that particular speaker within the framework of that context. Then you have the declarative words that can change the mood. Just let me quote. I On the day of christening, let me say, name giving ceremony to a particular child. I name this child Robert. I name this child Abhijit. If I say this, the from that day onwards, earlier the fellow was called small baby, something something. There is a complete change in that particular person's life. He is going to be given a new name, a new title. I call this ship Titanic. If you say, from that day onwards, that particular ship gets a new name, and then so there is a complete change in the entire mood or the entire environment. So that is declarative. And of course you have opinionization. This is very regularly done. We adjudicate people. He's a good man, he's a bad man, he's a rich man, she's a wonderful woman, she is an ugly woman. Like that we keep on saying so many things. This ugly, all adjectives, in fact they are all none other than verdictive. So you assess somebody, you adjudicate, or you have some kind of opinion. So it fixes that particular person to the framework of that quality. This a person cannot go beyond that. So adjectives actually limited a person's personality. So that is how we do the sixth function, that is another than verdictive. Now let me also indicate what are the various sub activities that we can find in each of these main functions. Let me start with representative function, and you can have describing, claiming, insisting. Sometimes we insist. Okay, we don't repeat this mistake again. That is one kind of insistence. Then predicting, stating, asserting. So all these things come under representative function. Then you have directive function, where you have commanding, requesting. And let me tell you here, there are no requests. Although I wrote that particular word requesting, I don't see any request in this world, because all requests are orders said politely. An order, when it is spoken politely, is called a request. That is how I see that particular thing. Anyway, so commanding, requesting, inviting, forbidding. You stop somebody from doing something. Don't smoke cigarettes from now on. something like that, forbidding, suggesting, sometimes don't come late to school again. So something like that, do's and don'ts you can have in this particular segment, that is directive segment. And even you can give directions also from place to place. Somebody is going, someone comes and asks you the direction to a particular place, and you are directing that person to go, where is the library, and then you tell him the way in which he has to travel to reach the library. So that also comes under none other than direction. And then you have commissive, committing the speaker to do a particular action, that is promising, offering. You can see here all these: promising, offering, threatening, and then of course refusing, vowing, pledging, volunteering. So I prefer to do this. So you volunteer yourself to do that particular activity. So that also comes under commissive. When you say I prefer to do it, you are committing yourself. I will do it. If you say something like that, when you say, it means we are committing. So why I say these words are very essential, especially when you are transporting one sentence from one particular speech act to another speech act. These words are going to help us a lot. So have these sub functions also in mind when you are teaching or when you are learning these speech acts. Then you have the expressive, as I said. Of course, even in directive also you have emotional tinge coming. Here also you have emotional tinge directly indicating. So expressions you have praising, welcoming, blaming, saying apologies, congratulating, something like that. All these things come under expressive part. Then you have declarative. When it is declarative, it means challenging. You warn somebody, you bet sometimes you pronounce, you sentence, you resign, all these things. So these are all declarative. And finally, I hope you can see here the three sub activities I have listed. They are none other than assessing, ranking, and judging. We judge people, we rank people using adjectives, we limit their personalities, and finally we have assessments also done. So like this, we have different sub functions coming up there. So both main functions and sub functions we should see in order to understand the different types in which speech acts can be expressed. So please understand that. And then examples already I have given. We can have some more examples as well. Let this be the link for the next episode, in which I am going to talk about the different types in which thoughts are actually represented. Once a speech part is actually concluded, once you are able to understand the speech differences, then we can go into thoughts. That's what I actually felt. So speech actually happens between two components, the listening component and the speaking component. The speaking component, why I use the word component, because it can vary between one person to several persons. So you have that kind of a thing in both cases. So that is what which happens. The speaker is different, the speaking component is different, and the listening component is different. Both are entirely different. And there are 6 important cases where we can find free direct speech, free indirect speech, narrative reporting of speech acts, and finally representation of speech acts. These are the different ways in which speech actually is mentioned. Then you will have, I know very well, you still have that question in your head. In what way is it going to be useful to us? When a question is based on this particular topic, you need to identify to which segment, whether it is a speech act or a thought act. First, you need to identify that. Once it is done, if it is not a self-talk, if it is not a self-talk, it means it is speech act. So what kind of speech act it is? Based on that type, and then the output type, what exactly into which we have to transform it, we have to follow the mechanism. So that is the main reason why we are learning these 6 types. It is not just only direct speech and indirect speech. You have free direct speech, then in what is called free indirect speech also, just above direct speech and indirect speech respectively. And combinedly, we can also say narrative reporting of speech acts, and just indicating that there is a speech act performed. We can also have a what is called a representation of speech act. Like that, you have 6 different types of speech acts. I hope you have understood the 6 different types of speech acts. I am very sure I haven't told you how we can actually cause the transformation from one particular speech act to the to another particular speech act. Definitely that I shall be doing in my subsequent videos. But in the next video, I have another important responsibility to do, and it is another than taking up the thought acts, because that is also another important thing. We have completed 6 different types. You see, you have got 6 types here. Let me put it this way. We have got 6 types, and all the 6 types we are, I hope I am able to get you the complete purport of all these 6 types. At least you have come from this particular video, watching this particular video, you have come to know that there are 6 different types of speech acts. At least we are able to accomplish that task. In my subsequent videos, I will be expostulating on how this can be done, and more importantly, my next purpose is talking to you about the thought acts and how they should be performed. I thank one and all for being a part of this lecture, and I also thank the great linguists, none other than Mike Short and Fowler, and then of course Searle, and finally Austin. All these people whose content I have really used in giving this particular lecture. And also I thank Professor Dr. Subbarao, who actually had been my teacher and who had been giving a lot of inspiration for me to do such a topics on variegated themes. I thank one and all on this particular occasion for listening to my lecture. Thank you one and all.